So this is just going to be, it's a pretty quick introduction. What I'd like you to get out of it, right? 30 minutes to do First Nation community engagement is not very long, but what I wanted to do was to talk about a few key variables and a few key things that can start to eliminate the anxiety that comes with our engagements, right? You know, are people going to show up? Is it going to be doing that? How do we start to look at some of the ways that we can do this in First Nation community? And then I'm going to talk about some virtual engagement and start to give you the ability to converse and maybe even look into some of these other softwares. So there's some softwares out there, and Tiffany and I are going to do a quick little example, a quick little icebreaker with one of those types of softwares out there. So there we go. So as I did in the welcome, I am the CEO of SIPS. But what we've done in our organization and over my career is we have done a ton of surveys, we've done community meetings, we've done clicker style meetings at community meetings for input, we've done high anxiety leadership meetings, so meetings that are really intense or really hard thought through. We've done large scale community meetings where, you know, there might be multiple communities there, or it might be the whole community at once. And we've also done things that I call highly produced sessions where you've got literally a producer on side, you've got these, you've got the green screens and all that sort of thing. We've done those as well. So, you know, we've seen a lot of different ways, a lot of different methods. And what we try and do is bring the top ones that would work into our First Nation communities, into our Indigenous communities, to make sure that what we're doing is getting the best outputs. So today, again, I just want to give you some ideas and some thoughts in today's world before you get on to your other meeting. Sorry, I have two screens going here, so I'm just, maybe I just do this. There we go. So again, there's a couple things in First Nation language that happens quite often. There's two different things. A lot of projects require engagement and may not require consultation. Today's world, in the legal environment, the legal landscape, you've got the formal duty to consult. This is not what I'm talking about today. There's a whole different procedure, policies, action items that have to go. What I'm talking about is when you want to get your community involved. So we've got engagement here. I'm talking about involvement in a project, involvement in opinion, involvement in how we go. Engagement is an important part of the consultation process. But that's what I'm talking about here in engagement. I'm not talking about how do we do the formal duty to consult here. That's a whole different training course, and it requires a fairly sophisticated level of understanding of the law and what is required from our point of view as well as others. So when I'm talking about engagement here, when I use the word engagement, I want you to think about how am I going to get the community involved in what we're doing? How am I going to get them excited? How am I going to get them sort of on side with our project as we go? So one of the things that our First Nations often, you know, we get hired to do a lot of engagements is a lot of people say, well, we want to talk to everyone in the community, right? Our communities are small. We should be able to get an opinion from everybody. And 100% engagement is not necessarily a good goal. One, it creates a ton of anxiety for you. You know, oh, we only had 10 or 15 or 20 people at this. You know, I was expecting so many more. You want to start to identify, you know, how big these engagements should be and what they should be. So when you have 100% engagement as a goal, you know, you forget about the people that just aren't interested, right? That's fine. There's people that don't care about what you want them to be interested in, right? I'm not interested in, let's say, you know, large cats, you know, like I'm just not interested in that. So why would I go to an engagement on that, right? I'm not sort of in the target market. People may be busy. You may be, you know, it may be hard for them to get to places. People are people and they may just not show up, right? They may have a big opinion, but just don't show up to events or to engagement sessions. And then there may be personal things. People just may not like you, you know, that they go, oh, I would love to give an opinion, but I don't want to go see them. So when you talk about 100% engagement, you have to sort of refine that. And 100% of what? So when it's 100% of the community, it's too much. It's too impossible to reach. You're always going to set yourself up to fail with engagement. And that's a really important concept to understand. what you have to start to think about, and this is a statistical term, a math term that you learn about in math and statistics types courses, but what you want to have is a viable representative sample. You want to have a sample of your community that is going to reflect the general opinions or the most part opinion of your community. And once you determine that you want 100% engagement of your representative sample, now you can be a little bit more targeted and a little more a little better. I shouldn't say a little more. You'll be a little better at it. So what is it? A representative sample, pretty easy. It's a subset of a population that seeks to accurately reflect the characteristics of a larger group. So for example, there's 30 students in a classroom going to the education with 15 males and 15 females in the class. A representative sample might be 6 students, 3 males and 3 females, right? You've got 3 males, 3 females in the class, and you say, okay, that's a representative sample of my students. I don't have to get them all in. I'm just going to ask these groups. So technically, right, when you talk about math and you talk about representative sampling, it only requires whatever percentage the statistical population is necessary to replicate what you want. So for example, if the population is 1,000 and it's made up of 600 men and 400 women, and you're trying to do analysis by gender, you only really need 3 men and 2 women to get a representative sample. Right? So when you talk about statistics, you can always say I had a representative sample to council or to leadership that you're presenting to sound good. But the reality is it just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem to be enough if there's 1,000 people and all you did were 3 men and 2 women. It's not, although it's representative of the makeup of your community, it's not necessarily representative of the community itself. Okay? So we want to make sure that your representative sample has a lot of different components to it. I'm sorry. So when we talk about First Nation representative samples and what we're going to be talking about, right? Your community may be 1,000 people, for instance, and this is quite common. It might have 500 men, 500 women, 20 elders, 200 youth, 30 language speakers, 10 that are actually passionate about climate change, 80 that love Chief and Council, 800 that don't pay attention to Chief and Council at all, 120 that despise Chief and Council. You could have 12 core family groups. You could have 6 different clans representative. You could have 600 off territory and 400 on territory. So this is how our communities are representative, right? There's a lot of different component parts to our communities. And when you say, I want a community-wide representation, start to identify what you mean by that. What you mean by a representative sample. What's going to be a good number of people to engage with to make sure that I get a representative sample of the people that I want. You may have a representative sample of only the women in your community. It may be the only relevant group that you have that you want to engage with. That's okay, right? It doesn't always have to be community fulsome, but you want to understand that your First Nation has a number of different component pieces that all will bring some sort of element to it. So when you think about your viable representative sample of this group, is that one from each bullet? Meaning we want 1 man, 1 woman, 1 elder, 1 youth, 1 speaker, 1 passionate about climate change. And you start to go, and if you think about that and you go and you say, if I had that group, that would really give me some good input and I would feel really comfortable with that. Well, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's only about 11 to 12 people in your representative sample of your community. But you probably have a good sort of indication of a representative sample, right? You probably will get from those 18 people a pretty good feeling of what it is that you want to accomplish with your engagement or what you want to find out. You can always confirm what you find out after your engagement, right? You say, here's what we heard from our representative sample, and you put it out and they say, is it right? Is it good? So what I want you to, it can be 1 from each bullet. It can be can a person be from 2 bullets? So can it be an older woman, so an elder woman that speaks the language, that is passionate about climate change, and that represents 4 of your sort of core components of your community. You can sort of see how that starts to skew it because you're really only getting 1 opinion and you're trying to get it around, these opinions. So That makes it a bit more tough, but sometimes you do, and we do it all the time when we start to sample our First Nation communities. Can you be from 3 bullets, 4 bullets? What is it? And then the other thing you might say is, I only want people that care about this, right? In climate change, I don't need to, some topics, other topics are not the same. I only want to talk to the people that are in the community that are really passionate about climate change. So my representative sample here would be, I need as many of the 10 people as I can that are there. And that's an okay representative sample, right? Depending on what your objective is, what your goal is, it's really okay to do this. The thing is, you determine what your representative sample is. You can run it by council, you can run by everyone, but the person who's hosting the engagement is going to be the person that defines the representative sample. If you do this, if you take the time to say, what do I really feel I need to be successful? Very seldom, unless you want to spend $6 million of your community's long-term investments, right? Do you require everyone in the community's participation, right? There's very few topics that require everyone's input. What you want is to understand the sort of general feelings of your community and how they're moving forward. If you are moving in the wrong direction, people will let you know outside of your representative sample. You might miss, but if you do this with your engagements and your engagements activities, it's going to relieve a ton of your stress pre-engagement. I'm coming on a Zoom call, I'm a little bit nervous trying to speak into a camera. That's already got a lot of anxiety for me to be the host, right? To be the host of this event. Carrie Ann's, who's coming, a couple people didn't answer. I don't know, there's all that anxiety. If you know that you have got a representative sample and they know who's going to come, that will help relieve a lot of your pre-engagement stresses that you might have. So you get these beginnings, and one of the things I think we do in our Indigenous communities in particular, as consultants in particular, is we say, oh, let's put a notice in the community newsletter that we want to engage people, send us information, let us know. What I think we need to move to, or one that's going to be a lot more effective for you, is by actually inviting people from your representative sample, right? If you invite 3 people from each of your representative sample groupings, you're going to start to get a more fulsome group, a well-rounded group of your community members. I go to some communities and it literally is the family of the person hosting the event, right? The family is sitting there, and you go to the event, and so the host is there, and they said, come on, we're going to have prizes, and it's the family that shows up to support their staff person. But it's, it's fine, but when you try and report on the outcomes of that engagement, it's very skewed and it's very one-sided, right? There might be a bit of variance in opinions, but generally you haven't got what you want. So we want to make sure we do targeted representative invitations. Invitations also make people feel like their opinion's really important. In this virtual setting, if you're invited to these meetings, if you're invited to be a part, that helps people to say, someone's going to value my opinion. I'm representing part of the community. You get some sort of knowledge and understanding that you're wanted in that event, right? When you do just the community notice, it's like, someone from the community will say what I want to say. But if you get asked to go, you almost feel this obligation, right? If I get directly asked to do something, it's really hard for me to say no to someone I want. And do you want to help your community? It's kind of hard to say no to that. So you get an obligation, you sort of get a tie to attend as well. You'll also make sure that you have your set of voices are there to be representative. You will start to get from, if you do invitations and start it by invitations, you'll start to get the community's standard response. I didn't know about that. No one asked me. I don't believe in the outcome because I was never part of the process, right? That's in our Indigenous community's nature to say, we didn't know, we didn't hear about it. I would have liked to have done that. Our communities like to say that. I've heard it pretty much every engagement I've been at, or any presentation of engagement materials that we've been at. But by inviting with RSVPs, you can actually reduce that pre-event distress. And if you're worried about being selective, you can add a line in the invitation. If you know anyone else that wants to come, let me know and I'll forward an invitation to them. This is an open community event. Feel free to RSVP for as many people as you want, right? Just because you invite someone doesn't mean it can't be an open letter, right? We're inviting you. We hope that you and any family members can attend. These invitations, these direct invitations, are going to really help you out. People don't get phone calls anymore, and you say, wow, that's a lot of work. If you want your engagement to be effective, you have to do this pre-work. Know who you want in the audience and work really hard to get them in the audience. You'll be amazed at how successful your engagements are if you do that pre-work. Your report will write itself after. You'll save a ton of time after because you're not trying to justify who might be there and who might not be there, right? You want to make sure that you really do this pre-work of who's in the audience. Is it representative? Do I have the people that I want? And I have to ask them, I have to desire their presence and sort of commit them into being there. Community notices are always an excellent follow-up, and they allow for the inclusion of others. So don't stop doing that, but they often don't result in representative samples, right? If it's during the day, you're gonna get a certain group of people. If it's in the evening, you're gonna get a certain group of people. So to me, this is the most important part of the engagement process, is this making sure that you have a representative group of who's going to be with you and when. So we all know this. This isn't new to you at all. I don't want to sort of go over how do you do a survey. If you want those types of sessions in the future, absolutely. How do you design a survey? What's the best way to host a community meeting? What is a focus group? Talk to Carrie Ann about that if you want more specific training in these areas where you say, wow, I'd really like to learn more. That's fine. And same with the ones here below. What's happened with COVID is the engagements still have to happen. We can't just go and do our work now. And if you don't believe me, ask Doug Ford, right? You know, he's got an omnibus bill right now that our communities have said, you didn't even talk to us, man. And now this is going and it's going forward and we don't know how to stop it. And there was no engagement or no even discussion really. And if you try and do your work without those engagements, you're going to run into those issues and you're going to run into those problems. So you still have to do it. And now people are really figuring out and starting to learn, ourselves included, on how to move engagement to an online opportunity. And in First Nation communities, aside from technology, it's actually really cool. It's really, really good for our projects, and it really is an opportunity. If you have the proper internet connections in your community, if you have the ability for people to commune and sort of sit in front of this for an hour, it's a lot easier to get engagement out of your community members online. And you say, wow, really? Like I thought it was more of a pain in the butt. The pain in the butt is the technology. Once you've got that figured out and once your community is sort of understands that what we need to go, then I think you'll find it. So there are these whiteboard platforms. So one of the companies out there it's an online sort of thing that we're going to show you later is Miro. And it's really neat, right? It can do all the things that you've ever wanted to do at a community meeting, but you can do it online from the comfort of your home. So, you know, you can do as many of these as you'd like. There's voting platforms out there. So I know the Ontario Aboriginal Land Managers Association, as well as Curve Lake, they use One Feather to do a voting system. So it's a private voting system. You register with your status card once, and then all your community can vote on certain things. So there's the voting platforms that One Feather has, and there are other ones out there for sure. We've all done Google, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, like we're on now. We've all done Google Docs and Dropbox. And then social media is now becoming a way to do engagement as well, right? An opportunity to do engagement on platforms that people are already familiar with. So I'm not going to go into deep dives on all of them at all, but if some of them you would like to, there are professionals in each of these that can do a sort of a session on how they work and how they might work in your community for doing your engagement. But I just wanted to put them out there so that you knew that it's happening. So when we talk about our successful community meetings or focus groups or surveys, I just wanted to give you just a couple little things that we've heard of that have been done. And one is obviously invitations. I spoke to that. It's a tough, hardworking step, but it really does work if you do invitations and RSVPs. If people commit to coming, they feel bad for not coming, right? So they will actually get up and get out of the chair and go, oh, I said I'd go, right? And that's unfortunately, once they get there, it's up to you to impress them, but they will get out if they've been invited and RSVP'd. We all know the value adds in our First Nation communities. We often use prizes. We often use food. We very rarely use entertainment, like having some sort of a comedian, you do an engagement and then the comedian comes on, sort of. I've seen that work in communities. It's not something that has worked for us really well. And then the idea of bingo, Carrie Ann's community, she can speak to that during your session. Carrie Ann's community does a bingo that actually ties into the engagement that you're having. So they've had a lot of success with those as well, especially on the climate change area. So if you do want to talk to Carrie Ann about GI and how they did that, she can fill you in on those details. Timing, you need to understand your timing. Do you need to do 2 engagements, right? Do you have to have an afternoon and an evening, or a weekday and a weekend, or anything like that? Do you have to have 2 engagements to make sure that you can get to everyone, right? You know what your sample is, you know what that group is. Do you need to have that? And then the last one here is really important. My wife is an event planner by trade. She works for a charity and she organizes events. We do meetings all the time. And the more organized the event is, the more successful it is. Now, all the organization in the world may be thrown out the window during the event, but if it was organized at the outset, then we know it's going to happen. So if we've practiced these Zoom sessions, if we've practiced this platform, then you actually build trust with your community to do it over and over. They'll join you because they go, oh, those events are always really good, well organized. They're done when they say they're going to be done. They talk about what they say they're going to talk about, that sort of thing. And how do you do that? You allow for goals and objectives to be met. You can test the technology beforehand and just be prepared for your engagement sessions. Again, being prepared reduces stress, right? If you thought about all this stuff ahead of time, you don't have to think about it on the fly when things go wrong. A lot of us do surveys, and in the online, in the COVID world, I think we're going to have to do more surveys. We've always used SurveyMonkey as a platform. It's an online platform. It's great. When you get your surveys in, you can just plop it right into a PowerPoint and away you go, right? It's a very efficient way. So SurveyMonkey training is something that we've done in GI as well, that you could take SurveyMonkey training, learn how it works, and be able to survey your community. You can put them online on your website as well. So it's not really as time sensitive. And if you say, oh, this is a good combination, because if people don't have the online ability to survey, you can actually do it on paper and then put it into the computer and have all the benefits of the computer behind it. One thing we've done in Georgina Island, which I would suggest, with anti-spamming laws now, communities feel okay, and One Feather is a great example of this as well, is if you've registered to receive emails, then you are allowed to send emails out, right? So what Georgina Island Economic Development Department did is we went to the Christmas Bazaar with the sole intention of collecting emails when we have a survey, when we have a new report, when we have engagement sessions. Would you like to be notified? And all it is a paper that says, yes, I would like to be notified, and they sign up. And now we have a list, a mail-out list that we put in. It's called aweber.com is what we use. MailChimp is another one, a launch of SurveyMonkey. But just by having that community list, we now have 60 community members that get notified every time. And with these mail-out lists, it will actually tell you who's read it and how quickly they read it. So you can actually see how effective your engagements are being when you're mailing things out. So, and they've also said, yeah, I want to be a part of it. And if you get it into one household in a First Nation community, that's usually going to reach 2 or 3. So these mailing lists and getting a mailing list and an inventory that's separate from the First Nation, that is particularly targeted, and I look at mostly education, right? It's great. It's a good way, and you can actually monitor how well your emails going out are. And we get those emails all the time. We just don't realize that we're getting them, right? That we're on a mailing list that, our shopping companies provide and stuff. It's a very good element for First Nations. And then if they don't want them anymore, right? If they don't want them anymore, they can just unsubscribe like you do any other, right? So they just get off the subscription. So if you're sending too many. That capacity, and the reason why I bring that up for engagement is because that can help you maintain a relationship, right? You can give them a quarterly survey that they just are waiting for, and it's only 5 questions at a time. The community gets used to receiving this and engaging in a certain way. it will take community meetings and the stresses of all that out of it. And if you have 100 people, you can do it. You know, you might do one, and then when you publish the results, you actually issue the next survey at the same time. So that way the community's like, oh, we did the survey, and now we're getting the answers, and here's the next survey. You know, it's just like polling. We've done polls on our websites as well. But again, that builds trust that, one, we're getting asked these questions a lot. Two, it gives you confidence in the workplace when you say, I have done a survey, and, you know, I know what the community is feeling in this way, right? I do a survey every month, and the survey generally gets between 50 and 500 people. This one only got 10 people. Why? Because no one cares, maybe? Because it's not as big a priority as we thought it might be? So these types of surveys and opportunities for engagement online in a virtual world, they can work in both. So I think there's an opportunity there in First Nations to do this, because we all do have phones now. We all do get our emails. You can send these out by text as well in Aweber, right? We can send out a text notification. All of those, MailChimp, they all do that sort of thing. So, and you say, well, I'm not techie, right? It's not techie. You just need someone to set it up, and then it's an administrative thing. Once it's set up, you send an email. Instead of sending it from your mail, you send it from the Aweber platform. It's not tough once you get the database set up to the way you want it. So that to me is there. And now I want to just sort of quickly move to a virtual engagement. Sorry, I don't have a clock in front of me here. I usually have my phone with me. The online engagement, it offers continually accessible communication channels. So for the first time, instead of just having a community meeting that if you can't make it between 5 and 6, you can have these engagement sessions be open for quite a while. We're recording this one, and that recording is actually going to, you know, have life beyond the event. And that's important so that people can actually record these things and understand what it is. So for the first time, I think in our First Nations world, we're starting, COVID has actually let us lead to the ability to do these, right? To actually do this event and do these sort of sessions. So with no time constraints and no distance constraints, so if you're on vacation, but this is a really important topic with you in your First Nation or your community, you can actually say, right? I'm gonna take 2 seconds out. I'm gonna go online and do this for an hour. So these distance constraints go away, which allows you to really connect with out of territory members, and that will help as well. So I've got on the green are the positives. The reds, there's also some negatives of your virtual engagement. You can actually survey and monitor a larger group online, right? You'll be able to get more access. If there's only 10 people at your community event or your engagement meeting, then you can actually really expand that. A huge one, especially if consultants are involved, is the reduction in travel costs. We are now able, so I'll give you an example of what happened with the Land Managers Association on their strategic planning. When we were going to do this, we were going to have to travel to Niagara Falls and have a session at their AGM and take that information and process it, go to the board and do another session to say what the results were. That was going to cost about $3,500 to $4,000. Travel, our time, this sort of thing. The engagement has now been moved online, where we're going to be able to take different representative samples. So we'll be able to have geography-based groups. We're going to be able to have male-female groups. We're going to be able to have all these different groups, all these different representative areas, and ask the same questions and see how this actually plays out. And we can do 10 of those sessions in the same price, right? Once we've got this all set up virtually, it's the same price. I don't have to go anywhere. Right? So when I don't have to go anywhere, you save a lot of money on travel from consultants, right? For us to leave the office, it's $1,000, right? For a consultant to leave the office, it's $1,000. And why are you paying us that when we can do something online that's probably going to be as effective if we get the communities used to it? So to me, that's a big one of virtual engagement that COVID has really taught us. We thought we always had to be face-to-face with our clients. It's not so much. A lot of data can be collected through polling and surveying the groups, has the ability to allow more to have their opinion heard, right? There's not the dominant voice in the room on virtual. You will have someone that wants to be on camera all the time. And on the other side, you've got shyness of people, but the way we're going to show you, it doesn't really matter who's on camera. We can do other events or do other types of engagements that way. It's hard to get the emotional connection to the community group, right? You don't really know me. I'm just this sort of head on a screen, right? So you don't really know who I am, how tall am I, you know, what nuances do I have? So you don't get to know the facilitator as well, or maybe the group, but that's an issue. And you're going to have the children and pets walking into the frame all the time, which can also be kind of comical and entertaining. So I don't look at that too badly. And then the biggest technological challenge I've said is the internet speeds and having enough computers and having the ability to do it online. So being able to make sure that your group, that your representative sample has that with you. So when you talk about these, people are going to have high-speed, reliable internet. The host has to have high-speed, reliable internet. Not everyone. I think, you know, you can see Corey is offline and off mic. She can hear fine, and it'd be just like a TV coming through. And when it's time to speak, you can sort of do that, so you can sort of limit what you're using in the space. But the host has to have that. You also need to have multiple hosts. I would say when there's a larger group, you want to have 1 per 25 digital attendees. That way that everyone can sort of be listened to and have someone paying attention to the needs of the engagement group. You are going to have a bit different skill sets. The facilitator shouldn't be doing the IT, but needs to know the platform. But it's really important for people to be confident that I know what I'm doing. If you can hear me, if you can see me, if the things are going smoothly, if I'm transitioning from sort of platform to platform and that. Finally, don't forget the intellectual stimulation, the emotional stimulation, the physical stimulation of these events has to be very similar to what you're doing. And the reason why I want to show you Miro is, how do you get those? How do you ensure that the presentation is accurate? How do you get people to actually personally give you insights and reflection through a screen? How do you get the physical stimulation? You know, you can change the speakers. You can send out a pre-meeting snack bag as a reminder, right? Think about that as you've invited 25 people. You do have 25 snack bags that said, don't forget our meeting tonight. This is for you to enjoy while we're chatting, right? Perfect. And it's in a simple snack bag, right? It could be a little candy bag or a little something. And everyone goes, wow, that was awesome. And now they get there, and now everyone's sort of, oh, I'm going to eat my treats. Thanks for them. And it's a positive experience. So that's another type of thing that can be done. And then offer different types of visual cues and platforms. And I'm going to show you that. I'm going to jump quickly just about Miro, which is the bonus of visual engagements. I want to show you what you can do. Is you can design your engagement and do a bunch of different activities. You can vote, you can set priorities and have fun. The event can be recorded, so you don't forget, similar to this one. The images can be exported into reports. So once you've done your engagement, there's this whole big thing that virtual lets you just cut and paste your screens, right, into your reports. You don't have to retype them or redo anything, and it's the actual thing. And the last time, it's an opportunity to document and save in digital format historical teachings, opinions. In 20 years, people are going to say, why did we decide this? What were we talking about then? This is actually, virtual engagements actually preserve that information over time, right? If it's in a digital format. So I do want to try a quick hybrid virtual engagement. The input would be recorded virtually. Why do I call it hybrid? It's going to be recorded virtually by Tiffany, but your comments will be facilitated by me. Okay, so it's kind of, I'm doing all the comments, we're doing all the whiteboard stuff. You're not actually interacting with your screen, but I'm going to ask you some questions as we go forward. So I am going to now stop my sharing of that screen, and I'm going to share a different screen. Miro, here it is. So this is the platform for Miro. It's there, and some of you may be able to see that SIPS icon moving around. That's actually not me, that's Tiffany. So Tiffany can move her mouse around and show you that she's got control. And if we were all doing this together, all of our mice would be on there, right? So all of our mice, and you can turn it off as well, but if it gets too crazy, but you can see people interacting with each other on the screen. And you say, well, I don't know how to work, but you have some setup here that you have to do. And you can see that there's 3 different sessions that I want to do today. So all I really need to do is I'm just going to quickly go to a certain frame and bring it up for you. And as you get that frame up, you can see that you can do a normal presentation slide that you would any other time, talk about the agenda. You know, we're going to do a Curve Lake strategic planning session. We're going to do a welcoming, work to date. We're going to have a bit of a mural engagement, next step, and adjourn. And that's actually always sort of there, right? So I can always just sort of switch out and you say, well, this seems complicated. It's not really, right? Like this is, I have 2 clicks and we're already into our next sort of survey element. So Tiffany's right now, she's put up the instructions on the board. She's going to bring in the dots. Have you ever been to one of your community meetings where you put a dot on something that you like? So Tiffany can pull up some dots there and show them, put them on the screen for us. There they are. So you can see all our names are there. And if you've pre-invited people, then Chief Corey will have a blue dot. Councillor Molly will have a yellow dot. Councillor Nancy. So you can actually identify who says what if you want, or it could be green, yellow, and red, where a green dot means I love it, yellow, I'm not sure about it, red, I hate it, right? You can do a lot of different things with your dot voting. But what I'm gonna do now is Ted, I'll just work with you. So Ted is orange, Tiffany. And Ted, you know, cat versus dog, what is yours?
Sorry, dog.
A dog. So there we go. So you say, oh, that's kind of fun. But if we do that across the board and it wasn't hybrid where we had invited you and we were all doing this on the same platform, you would just do this with your own mouse. So it would take 2 seconds where Ted could actually move something where I can do it. So Tiffany has done it. Now this is me doing it. And I've chosen Corey as a cat person. And then you're going to have a number of dots over a particular question. So so Molly, I'm going to ask you, what hot dog or hamburger?
Veggie burger.
Oh, veggie burger. We didn't have that. That's a good one. So veggie burger, good. So not a veggie dog. We'll say that. And then, sorry, my Zoom's on top of that. So we've got reading versus TV for Nancy. Nancy, would you have reading over or television?
Television.
Television. Great. And Corey, I'm going to ask you, daytime versus nighttime?
Nighttime.
Nighttime? Carrie Ann, beach or the woods? This is a tough one for Carrie Ann.
Ooh, that is a tough one. I'm going to have to say the woods, though, because you spend more time in the woods than on the beach.
And then for me, Coke over Pepsi was always Diet Coke. So you can see how you can do a virtual engagement now fairly simply. You know, yes, it takes some setup and yes, it takes some understanding of some software, but if you thought about your climate change questions and what you wanted to do, you can have a community now actually drop dots, right? Do that dot exercise virtually. It's here for you now. And this now what you can do is this is always digitally saved. So you'll always be able to refer to this and people say, where does this go? You know, so we'll always have that platform. And you say, okay, well, that's great, but no one actually got to talk to me or do anything. So let's go to the next one, Tiffany. Actually, I think I need to. So the next type you can have is an input session, right? We've all done it where we wrote on sticky notes and went to the board and put it on the wall, right? So you get asked a question and you do the sticky notes. This is absolutely something that we can do. So what I'm gonna ask everyone is what you'd like for Christmas. And we'll go around again. We'll start with you again, Ted, and he's the purple. Ted is the purple side there, Tiffany. Oh, you got Carrie Ann. So Ted, what would you like for Christmas? Pardon?
Is there something, sorry, I just got caught by an email, I have to say.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I apologize.
So yeah, when we're doing the sticky notes, so great example of virtual things, right, that go on. So we're just doing sticky notes here and we're saying, you know, how you can actually document what people want to say. So what would you like for Christmas? We're just going to show you how this works.
Oh, I'm not picking from anything?
No, you're not picking from anything. No, this is where you get opinion.
Oh, okay, all right. I want a new guitar for Christmas.
A new which?
A guitar.
A guitar, perfect. right? And Molly, what would you like?
I'd like a COVID vaccine.
There we go, good one. Nancy, what would you like?
Oh, I need a vacuum.
A vacuum, nice. Very good. And then Carrie Ann, Corey, sorry, Corey.
I was also going to say a vacuum, but a Roomba, because my dog
Roomba,
learn
nice.
how to vacuum.
All right. It's a great, actually great examples. Carrie Ann, what would you like?
I would like to be on a beach somewhere.
A vacation, good.
Vacation.
So now, you've got all these people, and again, this is what I said, a hybrid, is I'm asking you the questions and we're putting them in. When you're actually working together and you have a group of people, you can be typing these in yourself and do 5 to 6 or 10 or whatever you want. And Tiffany's showing you right now. Can you show us how you just drop in a new one? It's a drag and drop, and there's a new one that you can add, right? So you have your color and you go. And then afterwards, you can have a discussion. Okay, everyone thinks this is what we like for Christmas. Vacuums are actually the most popular, right? Everyone put on their notes, and there's vacuums are the most popular, and you can start to analyze these things. So right now, there's a lot of different softwares that do very similar things, and I'm only showing you one, so I don't get paid by Miro. I don't get paid to do that, right? This isn't a sort of sales pitch, but what I want you to realize is that there is opportunity to do your engagements the way you've done them before, as long as you can get your people online and on the phone and communicating, right? This is 2 people, Tiffany and I, working together, and she's grouping them together quite easily and quite quickly. And at the end, we're actually going to have a visual display that can go right in your report, right? Like usually what we do now is we take a picture of our camera of it. Now we want to have the other way. You can actually have what looks like a nicely produced sort of element out of this. So I just wanted to show you that quickly as a little end to my spiel before you get into your meeting. And there are other elements. There's more depth that we can go into in engagement and how you do it. But I think in COVID, I just wanted everyone to know there are options. There are ways to make your engagements more effective now and historically and into the future, I think. So Carrie Ann, I'm going to pass it over to you. And if you'd like to have it monitor a question and answer, that's great. Otherwise, Tiffany and I will drop off and let you go to your meeting.
Sure, Mike, that was awesome. Thank you. I even learned some. I always learn from you. But with that being said, does anybody have any questions that they want to pose to Mike about what he's put forward here in regards to community engagement? Like he said, he's been in this the community engagement world for many, many years. He's very, very good at it. And yeah, if you've got any questions for him, please fire away.
I just have some comments. This is all new, all this micro stuff.
Yeah.
But in our community, so we just opened our school and we had 5 community engagements before we opened our school. So some of the stuff you were talking about, we did do, trying to get those, that population.
Yeah.
And we got a really good turnout for our school. So we got about, in total, 20 parents, and we had about 50 parents. So it's really, really good. I really enjoyed your presentation though. It gave me more ideas moving forward with this particular project.
Great. Thank you, Nancy.
Ted or Corey, did you have any comments or questions for Mike?
Ted, looks like you jumped on first.
Oh, yeah. I guess I'm a little bit curious. Like, when you do this Miro, you usually do it in combination with a video chat service. Like, it doesn't have its own. Like, you're using Zoom plus Miro.
Yeah, Miro has its own video platform.
Oh, it has its own video platform.
Yeah, you would actually invite people to Miro. I just didn't want you guys all to have to register, right? Like, you do have to sign up for Miro and do an account, but it absolutely, you would do a Miro engagement in Miro. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
I'm doing a share screen and they do a lot of the similar things with share screen, but no, absolutely, it's a video platform in itself.
And I guess a sort of follow up, like one thing, so we're actually about to do some meetings in the northwestern part of Ontario where like they want to meet in person, but I will be here in Toronto, not in person. And I kind of could see this working as a way of, because the note taking it'll be kind of to have something that I can see that they can see where we're putting all the notes. Could you see this working in that kind of way? Like
Yeah,
everyone else is in a
absolutely.
room, but I'm on this computer.
No, well, one, you can do it, they can have tablets, right? They can have a computer, you can be running the screen, and as people respond to you, and I think it's important to have a Tiffany in the back, right?
Oh yeah.
Where you're talking and you've got someone typing and managing the sort of the platform. But it's just like any other whiteboard, right? You're putting things up on the whiteboard. You have to really think out what questions you want to ask, but each question would have its own sort of response rate. You can do voting on this as well. Like this, there's a lot more to this. I just wanted to show you that you can do your old ways in a new way too, because your chief and council will have done this 800 times and you go, oh, I know what I'm doing here. I put my sticker note, I know what to do. So yes, absolutely. I see this working. But again, planning is the big part, planning and doing the work, because you need to know what your report wants to look like. You need to know the progressions of your questions, and then the open-ended things. You'll be taking notes just like any other facilitated session, right? Because what I would ask you now is, a vacuum cleaner. Okay, so what's the best kind of vacuum cleaner that you might like? And someone else is taking notes that might be outside of the Miro sort of platform. So it gives you a visual. It's way more interesting than you being in front of that and a great big screen.
Yeah, that's totally.
It really is. Like I said, how do you make it sort of, if you do it well, you can see these things happen, and you can see Tiffany sort of just moving around and showing how easily things get maneuvered and can get done. And it just looks cool. And we've been working at this for about a week, so we're not experts in it at all. But we can set up. We know how to set up an engagement, so setting up frames for us in this is pretty easy. It's just intuitive for us. So I think that's important for you, Ted. And Corey, I think you had something to say as well.
Yeah, I just want to say that thank you so much for sharing this. That was a great presentation. I learned a lot from it. And this looks like a super fun way to interact.
Yeah.
It's very colorful, and, I think it really also caters to different people's learning types. So if some people are more visual learners, it can keep them engaged, because sometimes I find some people struggle with like that online interaction. But yeah, I think this is great. So I just want to say thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to definitely dig into this further to see how it can work with my program.
Yeah, obviously there's a subscription fee with it, and you get an organizational subscription. We find it to be reasonably priced, for us. So I think it is. I think it has some good value that way, and you can see the notes. You can make it look pretty. It looks professional, right? Compared to my handwriting, this looks way better, right? Like when it's my own handwriting on the board. So.
Awesome. Molly, did you have any comments or questions or anything like that?
Thanks, Mike. That was great. Definitely eye-opening for a light like me, just learning all these technologies, and certainly great pointers around engagement in general, which hopefully I can apply in my work as well.
We could do. There's obviously the engagement is a huge. There's lots of different things that we can talk about in this short time. I just hope you got a bit of information, and if you'd like more, there's more. If you'd like help, there's help. Just reach out to Carrie Ann, and she'll be able to point you in the right direction. So I do appreciate your time, and I hope I didn't go over. Yeah, I did. Of course I did.
No, you're all good.
I went over, but anyway, Carrie Ann, I'll pass it over to you, and Tiffany and I will say bye.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining us and giving us the presentation, and we will see you later. Have a good day.